So I've been diving very deep into everything Exodus related over this past month or so. I gotta say, my excitement levels for the potential of what Exodus could be or become has made Exodus by far my most anticipated upcoming RPG. Not to mention, it has also revitalized my excitement to create videos again, so expect a ton of content starting now. But the reason why I'm making this video is to share with you all the reasons why I am currently feeling this way and what stands out to me here, as I don't typically get like this for too many games. I do want to preface though by saying that yeah, I have no idea how this game is actually going to turn out, and gameplay wise we really only have that one gameplay trailer and some Q&As that talk about gameplay, so we're gonna have to wait until next month, December, to see more footage. I think they're going to be giving us the release date, etc. What I can say for certain is that the foundation of this new franchise, the Exodus franchise, genuinely has the potential to become an all-time great. So up first, yes, Exodus is an upcoming RPG, and I tend to be interested in RPGs, but actually it's much more than just being an upcoming video game. Exodus is a brand new IP, a new franchise, and it's already starting to build up in a very, very solid, interesting way outside of just the video game itself. The Archimedes Engine by Peter F. Hamilton is an example here, and this is a novel that came out in September of last year, and this is a science fiction book, the first novel for the Exodus franchise, and it is freaking huge. It is thick, it is filled with all sorts of interesting content. I think it's 890 pages long, and the writing, you're not gonna be able to see it that good, but the writing is pretty small too, so this isn't like a children's book or something like that. This is a beefy ass science fiction book, but most importantly, it's a really good book so far. I'm about halfway through it. Every morning I wake up, I'm super excited to start reading, and Peter F. Hamilton is clearly a very high quality author and writer. You'll even see people online saying things like, I've been ruined by Peter F. Hamilton and find quite a few books hard to read as a result. Can you recommend sci-fi books with similar quality writing? So we have this huge, chunky, deep, mature sci-fi novel that Archetype Entertainment and Wizards of the Coast, of course, were willing to hire a top-tier sci-fi author to write. Like I said, this is not a cheap, shallow book. This is the real deal when it comes to writing quality, in my opinion, and knowing that Peter is playing a large, meaningful part in the foundation of Exodus world building is really exciting. I should also mention that Peter's second Exodus book, Exodus the Helium Sea, it's called, is set to release in June of next year, 2026. So there's even more coming. They're just getting started. But it's not just the novel or the upcoming novel. We also have what I would consider as a very high quality encyclopedia here, the Exodus Encyclopedia. It came out fairly recently, and under the writers, you'll see that Peter F. Hamilton is credited here. So he helped write the encyclopedia among several other writers. One of whom is Drew Karpyshyn, sorry Drew if I'm pronouncing that wrong, who is the lead writer at Archetype Entertainment for Exodus itself. And many of you might recognize Drew's name, as he was the lead writer for Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. He was the lead writer for Mass Effect 1 and 2. He wrote novels for the Mass Effect franchise, and I think novels for the Star Wars franchise as well, and he was also a writer in several other games. I think he even contributed to Baldur's Gate 2. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So having a Peter and Drew combination in terms of writing and world building is pretty insane, as these are two highly successful writers, and from everything I've read, they have not lost their skills yet. Since I mentioned Drew, I should also point out that James Olin is the studio lead of Archetype Entertainment. He basically started the studio, even though it's technically owned by Wizards of the Coast, and he was absolutely huge for BioWare's golden age, as he was the lead designer on Dragon Age Origins, one of the greatest games ever made, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 also of the greatest games ever made, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Neverwinter Nights. I think you get the picture here. But back to the encyclopedia. This encyclopedia serves as, of course, a summary of the world of Exodus, and it's filled with pictures and descriptions and insight into core knowledge of the Exodus universe, most of which, once again, is extremely interesting in detail. Of course, that's subjective, but I really, really mean that. But this encyclopedia is more than just something for fans of the upcoming RPG to be excited about. It's also designed to provide a ton of information for those who want to play the new Exodus tabletop RPG. So if you're not really sure exactly what that means, just think Dungeons and Dragons, but in the Exodus universe. In fact, Wizards actually just released another book called The Traveler's Handbook, which is, I think, basically like the player's handbook for D&D, you know, a core rule set for how to play, how character sheets work, etc., etc. And there's also another book called The Chronicles of Malayu coming out soon, which I believe is like an adventure module similar to something like Descent into Avernus, something that I covered on my channel pre-Baldur's Gate 3 launch. On a side note, as somebody who is currently in study and research mode for Exodus pretty much every single day of my life, if you know how I can get my hands on a Traveler's Handbook for Exodus, at WolfheartFPS is my social media. Shoot me a DM or email me at wolfheartfps@gmail.com, because I'm really trying to get it, but it's sold out on the website and I don't know where I can find it, or if somebody has one that they're not using. I would pay for it. Thank you. Now, there's also an episode on the Secret Level show that is in the Exodus world. I'm assuming they're probably going to be working on more media, you know, shows or potential movies in the future, because there's so much here. I really mean it when I say that. But needless to say, the point of me bringing all this up is that this is the start of something that Archetype Entertainment and, of course, Wizards of the Coast clearly wants to be really, really big. And from my perspective, everything that I've read so far has been really great and very high quality, which is a really good pattern to see. Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee that the game is going to be great as well. There's a lot of other factors that go into the game, and, you know, it's just a different process. But it's a good pattern to see, and it's a good sign that everything is very high quality so far. But deep world building and writing don't really matter if it's not exciting, right? Well, I gotta say, as someone who never really attached myself that heavily to the sci-fi genre in general before, I've always been more of a medieval fantasy first and foremost type of guy. Exodus, from the book, from what I've read, half of the book, 400 plus pages, and the encyclopedia so far, has me hooked just as much as when I was diving deep into Forgotten Realms lore pre-Baldur's Gate 3 launch. Seriously. And I find myself going back to the gameplay trailer and the announcement trailer and just picking out things that I recognize, not directly from the book, because the book is in a different time, but different types of history and artifacts and species. And it's really engaging doing this, which I think is a really good sign, because I'm assuming I'll be doing that in the game as well. My favorite aspect of the lore and world building so far is that it can be quite dark, and it's definitely mature. So right here, meet the Moaksha. This is an intelligent changeling creature with a massive cerebral cortex that can store centuries of data. Humans will farm them for recall in the lore, which is a drug that lets users basically relive memories. And they do this by cruelly restraining and draining the Moaksha until they basically die, despite their sentience and extremely high intelligence. It's an extremely cruel process to a creature that knows exactly what's happening to it. Then we have the Minute Vassal, a vicious creature engineered by the Marayama that are designed to cause a human to hesitate due to their childlike appearance, but hesitation will often result in you being torn to shreds by one of these little bastards. Now, the Marayama are one of the game's big bads, of course. At least the game's kind of, the media so far that we've been given by Archetype is setting them up to be an important evil force that we're going to have to deal with. These are grotesque celestial species that prey on humans and other beings to harvest their brains. Like they feed on emotions and stuff like that. It's really weird. And on a side note, when a Marayama suffers from radiation-induced mutations due to prolonged exposure to radiation with where they're at in space, etc., they fuse together in a really revolting fashion, I would say, shedding their diseased parts, and then the diseased ones will continue to do this until they become too massive and are basically forced to the outside of their interstellar ships, to where they'll then merge with the living stone of the exterior of the ship. Let's continue on with this dark, gritty vibe here, though. And here's two unrelated lines to what I just talked about from the actual book, where I can just demonstrate that writing isn't really afraid to tell it how it is. One by one, they fell. The hooves of 6, 7, and 8-ton beasts stomped down on them again and again, shattering armor and pulping flesh. Torrents of blood and shredded organs splattered out across the ground. Now, I doubt that the game itself would show something like that in an insanely detailed visual way, but it's really great to know that in the foundation of Exodus writing, the sanitization of scenes is not really a thing here. It can get pretty damn dark. Now, the lore also explores more wondrous and imaginative elements. Everything's not dark and sad and grotesque. In Exodus, there are something called awakened animals, and these are creatures genetically engineered to have enhanced intelligence, animals from our world, Earth. And most of these animals, from what we've seen, do actually have a way to communicate with humans when it's done through technology. In my opinion, the whole awakened animal thing is handled quite believably, all things considered, with communication depending on species and tech rather than, like magic, like talking animals running around everywhere. One of the player's companions has already been confirmed in this game to even be an awakened octopus, and I would say that the octopus was chosen likely because of the species already having high intelligence. So if you have an awakened octopus, it only makes sense that they would be probably more capable of being human-like than any other animal species. Awakened creatures play major roles across the world of Exodus or universe of Exodus. There's even eagles that will carry riders, so we have flying eagle mounts in a way. I don't know if that'll be a thing in the game for the player character, but it does exist in the lore. We have rhinos that serve as like war mounts. You have dogs and cats that are more intelligent than the dogs and cats that you know, which offer a little bit more emotional type bonding and stuff like that. And all these awakened creatures are all quite distinct from one another. It's not just everybody's a talking animal. That, in fact, vocal cords haven't even formed on any of the animals that I've encountered yet. They have to literally speak through some sort of technological device to communicate in some way, but they're all very thoughtfully integrated, I would say. Obviously, the writers really took their time with every single species and really trying to make this make sense in a way and not just be like some stupid, ridiculous thing. Then we have celestial events like the Royal Trials, which is a competition where princesses, as celestials, have a matriarchal society. In some ways, I'd say it's similar to the Drow in Forgotten Realms lore. But these princesses will battle for the chance to be chosen by their mother, the queen, to undergo something called a mind line transfer, which is a process where an aging celestial will merge their consciousness, basically, with one of their children, effectively taking over their child's body, prolonging their physical life. Now, these trials can include almost gladiator-like style mounted jousting battles on the back of various different awakened animals. And although it's sci-fi, like you see like inspirations from medieval and stuff like that, which make it so much more interesting in my opinion. I could literally go on for hours about just random cool stuff that you can find in the encyclopedia. Different species of celestials. We have different species of changelings. We have ancient celestial artifacts and technology. There's a huge lore timeline of different time periods of wars and political peace, and I haven't even talked about humans, and humans are of course very important and core to the Exodus universe, and humans are basically in a way enslaved to celestials, although the celestials are descended from those same humans. It's all sorts of crazy, deep, and wacky in the greatest way possible. And if the game is anything like what I've been reading right now, I think at least on the world building and lore aspect of the RPG, this could be a really, really cool game. Just gotta really hope that the gameplay can complement it, because I think they're onto something here. Everything that I just talked about is the biggest reason why I'm so excited right now, because having actual depth and highly interesting concepts behind world building opens up so many possibilities and so much potential to have a really good RPG set in that world and universe. So in my mind, it's basically confirmed to have a good foundation of world and lore building. And as long as you have decent writers that can expand on that, it should be very interesting, at least in that department. And that department's pretty important to a lot of RPG lovers like myself. Now, the game itself, I'm also excited for. I've liked a lot of the things that the devs have been saying in their Q&As and what they've shown. And of course, having James Olin there, he has such a great reputation and record in the gaming industry, a great resume, so to say. This has a lot of potential, and they're saying good things. They're really placing a huge emphasis on choice consequence, which is also another really important aspect to RPGs for myself and a lot of you guys as well. But it's not just like, it doesn't seem like it's just choice consequence from a marketing perspective. It really comes across as a core design in part of this game, because it's already confirmed that we're going to be traveling through space to different worlds that are far away. And in Exodus lore, when you travel at very high speeds, light speed for example, the place that you leave behind, years if not decades may pass, while you traveling to this other planet and back or whatever might only feel like weeks. So you have this whole time dilation system going on that is core to the design of the game that I think we're all going to have to interact with. But I think where the player choice is going to come down to is how much are you willing to interact with it? How far are you willing to go to try to, you know, find certain things in the game to save your people, because your people are going to be basically living on a planet that's suffering a condition called rot, and you have to actually go to other planets to find celestial technology that can aid you in getting rid of this rot, so your humans can keep on living happily on the planet of Leiden, stuff like that. But you're going to have to leave the planet, and to what degree you're willing to go is going to be a decision that you're going to have to make, and it's going to affect those characters that you have met in the first half of the game. Let's say, for example, maybe you became really close with this one character, did a bunch of quests, or maybe it's a family member, and then you have to go to this one planet that's super far away, and if you make the decision to go to that one planet, you come back and then that person is 90 years old while your character's only 40 or something like that. So decisions like that I think are going to be core to the game. How far they take it, we're not exactly sure, but it's going to be there at least to a certain extent, and I think it's going to be more, there's going to be more choice and consequence than we're used to with your regular old RPG that advertises choice consequence. So I think we have at least something to look forward to in that category. Now, as far as gameplay goes and all that, we have to wait a little bit longer. Like I said, December, we are going to be getting a new trailer, some more information, and I think a release date as well. I'll be keeping a very close eye on this, and I'm actually starting my coverage of this game right now because we don't know when it's coming out. For all we know, maybe it comes out early next year, so I want to make sure I start now until we have that release date, and then maybe I can pace myself if it's not until later on in 2026. But it does appear to be coming out in 2026 at some point, according to some, there was some business meeting or something, a quarterly report or something for Wizards that mentioned that. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to me just basically ramble this entire video about why I'm excited for Exodus. I'm enjoying this world building and lore so much, and I can't wait to share it with you guys with like a highly immersive lore series, kind of like I did with Baldur's Gate 3. And of course, I'll be covering everything with this game, news, gameplay tips, all that stuff. And I would love to even do a let's play like I did with Baldur's Gate 3, where I focus on the lore. If I can become an expert in this lore, if I release a let's play when the game comes out, I can have that be a little bit more lore focused. So if you guys want to watch somebody else play the game, but that person explains some of the lore and technology from a place of, having read all the Exodus material to help you understand what's going on. Hopefully I can be that guy for you. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, so I'm going to end the video. Catch you on the next one.